wanting a place to hide this weary soul, this vagabond. I try with all my might, but I can't just win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond. And just when I ran out of road, I met a man I didn't know, and he told me that I was not alone. You picked me up, you turned me round, and placed our feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because you healed my heart, you changed my name, forever free, I'm not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. Clap along with us, come on. I cannot deny what I've seen, got no choice but to believe. My doubts are burning like ashes in the wind. So long to my old friends. Burden and bitterness, you can't just keep it moving. No, you ain't welcome here. From now till I want the streets of gold, I'll sing of how you saved my soul. This wayward son has found his way back home. Picked me up, you turned me round, and placed our feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because you healed my heart, you changed my name, forever free, I'm not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God.
Another one, I am free, I am free.
Come
Keep
on.
it going. I am free. Had lost another one, I am free, I am free, I am free. Had lost another one, I am free.
Come on.
I am free, I am free. Had lost another one, I am free, I am free, I am free. Had lost another one, I am free, I am free, I am free. Had lost another one, I am free, I am free.
Yeah, come on. You picked me up, you turned me round, and placed my feet on solid ground. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, because you healed my heart, you changed my name, forever free, I'm not the same. I thank the Master, I thank the Savior, I thank God. Amen, amen. Just one word, you calm the storm that surrounds me. Just one word, the darkness has to retreat. Sing with me. Just one touch, I feel the presence of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes are open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God one word and you revive every dream. Just one touch, I feel the power of heaven. Just one touch, my eyes were open to see. My heart can't help but believe. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's nothing that our God can't do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can't do. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power of Jesus. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like the power. Come on, sing it out. I will believe for greater things. There's no power like the power of Jesus. Let faith arise, let all agree. There's no power like His power. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a mountain that He can't move. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. There's nothing that our God can do. There's not a prison wall He can't break through. Oh, praise the name that makes a way. There's nothing that our God can do. Oh, yeah. Oh, 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 there's nothing, there's nothing, there's nothing, there's nothing. There's nothing that our God can't do. Oh, yeah.
Spirit sound rushing wind, fire of God fall within. Holy Ghost, breathe on us, we pray. As we repent, turn from sin, revival embers smoldering. Breath of God, fan us into flame. We need a fresh wind, the fragrance of heaven. Pour your spirit out, pour your spirit out.
Yeah, yeah. For hearts that burn with holy fear, purified in faith and deed,
Thank you. Good morning. We are so glad everybody's here this morning. I'm Molly Troutman. I'm the Connections Director here at church, the church on the corner where faith and life truly meet. So we hope that this place this morning in front of this cross will be a great place to start your day and your week. Welcome. For all those who are watching online, we are so glad that you are with us this morning as well. But if you are new, either in this room or on the other side of the screen, and if we haven't met each other, I would love to have that opportunity to meet you and know more about you. So please grab your phone and you can text the word Sunday to 865-344-2828, and I can let you know about some small groups here and ways that you can get involved. We do have a hospitality team that provides wonderful coffee. This morning they have big muffins and some other snacks. So please join us through these double doors and to your left after the service for hospitality time so we can get to know one another a little bit better. But if you are new this morning, I will be at the double doors after the service and would love to get to know you and give you a little gift. So welcome this morning. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Molly. I do feel obligated to mention one other blessing of being here with you all today, and that is the blessing of air conditioning. Maybe you're sick of heat jokes at this point, but it is what it is, and it's so wonderful to be with you all today as we come, as we worship, as we learn, as we share, and just be together in just a wonderful place. Whether we are together in this space or at home watching, we are one community with all the churches all around the world because we are together with one God. I invite you now, if you would, bow your heads and let us just share in a moment of prayer. Oh Lord, we thank you so much for this world that you have made, that we come and rejoice and find all kinds of different ways each and every day to be glad in it. And God, we ask and seek to get to a stage, if we're not there yet, to invite you to come and move in us, to be that fresh wind in our lives, to speak to us in some way through the songs, through the words that are shared, through the stories that we share as we talk and meet and greet with old friends and new faces. God, may we find your presence there and have the courage to invite your presence to come and to make a difference in our lives and in our community, God. God, may we come and just seek you, to seek your presence, to seek your presence in this time and in this space so that we might better learn to seek you in every moment of our weeks. Your presence, your fresh wind blowing into our world and giving us that break, that breath of fresh air, that love surrounding us as we are hugged by this wind. The love of you for us that is present everywhere. Amen. So here's a deep question that you may not know the answer to, and that's okay. But do you trust God enough to let go? If you think about like the trust fall exercise, right? What is all of that about? Like it's trusting the people behind you enough to let go and fall backwards, right? A lot of times trust is, letting go of control and trusting in someone else. And so do we trust God? Do you trust God enough to let go? And that's a great question. Our answers are probably, and it's okay, but they're probably all over the place. And that is okay to be there, but I think what's important is for us to start, if we aren't already, asking ourselves that. Because as we look at love, as we look at relationships, we see over and over and over again, lived out through human relationships, lived out through this relationship with God, that love and relationships deepen when we learn to lean into trust, when we learn to lean into faith. rather than clinging on in an effort to keep control, right? Keeping control or clinging to somebody else or to something else is not a very good way to be in relationship with that person. But to let go and to let love happen as your trust grows. So do you trust God enough to let go? Several years ago, I had the great privilege to be down at Camp Wesley Woods, and I had the opportunity to rappel down the waterfall there at Camp Wesley Woods. I don't know if you've ever been down there in Townsend, but there's a waterfall. It's about 80 feet high, and you can kind of see the water falling through the branches there. And it's not a very big waterfall unless there's been a ton of rain, but that's okay. And I had the opportunity to rappel down, and it was just an awesome experience. Even though, if I am honest, being high off the ground is not an experience I'm very comfortable with. I tell myself I'm not afraid of heights. I just have a very healthy trust that God meant for us to be on the ground, right? And trust, because if God meant us to be in the air, we'd have wings instead of legs. So God meant us to be on the ground. And so I remember, though, just this moment where I was there, and I was a counselor, so I had youth, high school kids that were sitting there watching me go first, and I had to set a good example, right? And so I'm sitting there, and your butt is hanging up over the edge as you are looking down, and you're like, gosh, that's a long way, because 80 feet looks a lot longer when you're on top of a cliff or a waterfall than it does if you're just looking 80 feet in the distance, right? And I had to take a moment where I looked into the eyes of the woman, Anna, who was sitting there, and she was there to guide us and to help us down, to make sure everything was going okay, right? As she's reassuring me, now these ropes can hold a car, Jacob, like it's okay. You've got this. You just have to trust and take that step back and to let go. And I think we, as people know on some level that we need to do that we need to kind of let go. We need to lean into trust, right? Lean into trust when it's appropriate, but it's really hard, isn't it? It is hard to trust, especially when we have to trust something that is either unfamiliar or uncomfortable to us. We have to trust something, such as trusting a rope when you're really high up, in a situation that is uncomfortable to us. And this can happen a lot in any religion, because there are a lot of different beliefs. There's a lot of different things that people believe about God, about the church, about all of these different issues. You've probably seen it lived out in many, many, many different ways. And I think it can be tempting to think that we've got to try and get that right belief. Like if we can just get all of our beliefs about every single issue exactly correct, we will be okay. But I think that is more a quest for the correct answer, a quest for the control to know that I've got it all figured out. And this quest for the correct belief doesn't really build relationships. We've seen that probably a lot in life, as right now it feels like there are fewer relationships, less trust than ever before. Because a lot of times that quest for the correct answer, the exact perfect truth, right? A lot of times it actually creates a separation between people. It creates a false sense of certainty because I control the correct answer. And if you don't agree with me, then you are wrong and I want nothing to do with you. But doing that, when we live out that way, it leaves us at the top of the waterfall, unwilling to step out and to trust that maybe someone else has a different answer, and an answer that could actually benefit us both. About 2 weeks ago, it was all over the news, and I just loved it. Photographs from the telescope, the James Webb telescope, were released, the first photos. The telescope launched on Christmas Day last year, but it finally got into place and started taking pictures, and it's just amazing to see. If you haven't seen them, I encourage you to go and to find some online. But it's just awe-inspiring to see these pictures of places all over this amazing universe. And now, We've seen pictures of space before, right? We've seen pictures like this before. Lots of other telescopes have peered out into the cosmos, right? And most famously here recently was the Hubble telescope, which the James Webb telescope came and began to replace. But there is something amazing about these James Webb pictures that's different, right? And that's because it was a different camera that took these pictures. Now, the James Webb telescope, not only does it have some newer tech, because it is just a newer telescope, it has a very different vantage point than the Hubble telescope. The Hubble telescope is located in orbit, right? So it's just about a couple hundred miles above where we are right now, up in the sky, orbiting around Earth. The James Webb telescope is about 1.5 million kilometers away. It's at a different location in space, and I think as we look, you can see the top is the Hubble and the bottom is the James Webb. You can begin to see that there is a difference in those pictures, a clarity, and all kinds of just of amazing things that we can see, that different viewpoint really makes a difference. And now sometimes I know it feels scary to look at a different point of view when we're talking about those things that we believe in our life. Scary because I think to see another point of view, I have to acknowledge that mine isn't the only one. And in doing so, I risk having my view changed. And it may not seem like a big deal with a lot of things in life, but there are some things in life that we kind of build our life upon, and to have those beliefs challenged is a hard thing. And so we've gotten into arguments as people. We've gotten into fights trying to prove why ours is right, which is why I think of all the cool toys sticking in space in science fiction movies that are out there, the one that actually might benefit us the most is this one on the screen from Hitchhiker's Guide. And this is the point of view gun. It is my one and only favorite gun that is out there, right? Because this gun does something just absolutely amazing. It does not shoot a bullet or a projectile. It does not deal damage when you pull the trigger. Instead, it causes the person being shot to see things from the shooter's point of view. Could you imagine having a gun like that, or any kind of technology or something where I can look at you and say, boom, I want you to see things from my point of view? That is just amazing. Could you imagine like a situation such as like you're super stressed, you're just having a horrible day because your boss just doesn't get that you can't get 3 hours of work done in 10 minutes. Right? You just can't do it. Why can't they see that they can't do it? And boom, just have the opportunity to be like, please just look and see what it's like to be me. Now, of course, one of the great twists that Douglas Adams put when they created the thought behind this point of view gun was that it doesn't work on women. And it doesn't work on women because, as Zoe Deschanel says in this, women don't need it because they already are so empathetic, they understand other people's points of view. It just doesn't work. And that's actually a really great point and deep point, I think, that they're trying to make there. Because we are a part of a culture that is definitely trying to change, but we also admit historically our culture and cultures of this world, most of them have been dominated by men. And a lot of what we encounter, especially in history, is all from a male point of view. And when you look at the top of the food chain, right? If you look at who is at the top of the food chain, a lot of times you don't really care what other people think because you're the top. You don't have to worry about others' perspectives when you are at the top. But when you aren't at the top, you almost have a little bit of a natural advantage. Not a guarantee, but a natural advantage that you will actually become much better at seeing things from different perspectives. And so I think it's kind of interesting that they said it like this about women because women are one of the many groups that historically has not been at the top, right? And so women have that advantage, one of the many groups that has that advantage in our culture where they have had, so many of them have had to see things from different perspectives. So one of our challenges as we try to learn from God how we can live in the way God is calling us, in a way where we can learn how to deepen this truth that we are loved, and how we can learn how to deepen how we love others, is we learn to give up the certainty that we've got everything figured out, and then learn how to listen to others, to see the world from different perspectives. I think that is so important in life and in faith, trusting that this will in fact deepen our relationship with God. Letting go and trusting that this will deepen our relationship with God and deepen our relationship with others. So how do we set about trying to expand our perspectives? I remember, when I was growing up, and later there's been different campaigns. I think there was a similar campaign during the Obama era, but it was a bunch of TV commercials. The NFL did it. They called it Play 60. And it was this idea, to kind of stimulate the kids or suggest to children, you need to go outside and play for 60 minutes a day, right? That is good for you to go and to play outside. I think that's an important lesson for us to hold on to as we grow up, and not just something that kids need to do, but something that we all need to do. And I don't just mean, go outside. Actually, right now, I would not recommend going outside. You will turn into a puddle of sweat within 20 minutes, right? But going outside is in a different way as we grow up. Not just going outside of our house or of buildings, but our need to constantly remind ourselves that, yes, I do need to go outside of my normal routine. I need to go outside of my normal understanding. I need to go outside and see how other people are thinking, are talking, are sharing, are speaking. I need to go outside and see what else is going on, because we live in a world that is definitely super connected and just huge, but weirdly enough, it is probably more easy today than it ever has been to fall into a really, really, really small box. I don't know about you, but I get a little frustrated with the suggestions that pop up when I get on Netflix or especially Spotify. One of the things I love about Spotify originally was when you listen to music, it would keep suggesting new music for you to check out. Unfortunately, my Spotify is connected to our Alexa at the house, and so my account gets used to play a lot of Disney songs and children's songs, so I get suggestions that are all over the place. But I've noticed on Spotify and Netflix and even Facebook, right? It keeps saying, hey, here's something similar to what you've listened to or something similar to what you've watched. Try it out. And I'm like, okay, cool. You kind of know my preferences, but I love actually experiencing things that I didn't know I might like. You know how hard it is to find a movie on Netflix if you're not specifically looking for a title? You're just like, I want something different. It's really hard to find. Go on Facebook, and a lot of times, Facebook will keep showing you things or people that you've looked at before. I recently changed the settings on my Facebook from top stories to most recent, and I'm starting to see feeds from people I didn't even know I was still friends with. They've been posting stuff, I just hadn't seen it in years because Facebook didn't think I liked it, I guess. It's so easy for us to just see over and over and over and over again the same things, be exposed to the same kind of things, hear suggestions at eating at the same kinds of restaurants we always eat at. And if we're only exposed to that same thing over and over and over again, not only will we become way too comfortable there, we'll even start to believe that this is the right and true way. That these kinds of movies or these kinds of songs, these are the best songs and everybody needs to be listening to them. Or here is the way of looking, or here is a belief about this world, and everybody should believe like this. For example, even though it is nowhere near perfect and has a lot of struggles, especially here recently, some very public struggles, I'm proud of the United Methodist Church. Because the United Methodist Church for decades has encouraged women to be pastors, to be leaders, to be teachers, to be everything that a man can be in this church. And I just love it. Right now in our conference, we've had a woman as our bishop. We've had a woman as our district superintendent here in this area. And I think that's just so awesome. But that hasn't and wasn't always the case, was it? In fact, there's still true for a lot of people, a lot of Christians today that believe very strongly that women have no place preaching, they have no place leading, they have very little place teaching outside of children in a church, right? There's a lot of people that still feel that way. And I think a lot of this thinking comes from just a few verses in the Bible, such as Corinthians chapter 14, 34 through 35, which says, women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home. For it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in the church. And on that note, I'm going to have to ask all women to be silent. No, please no. Sorry, bad joke. Thank you. I deserve to be laughed at for that joke. Thank you. Taken at face value, maybe you've heard those words, taken at face value through the lens of our culture that has taught us, those are some pretty harsh words that seem pretty clear. Women should be quiet as soon as they enter into a church building, and they should not say a thing, much less be in a position of leadership or teaching or preaching until they leave that space, right? A couple years ago, I was listening to a podcast with N.T. Wright. N.T. Wright is a conservative biblical scholar from across the pond. He's one of those people that's written a lot of books and just really has studied Scripture a lot. And in this, he was talking about these verses, and he offered a different perspective of those same verses that I had never heard before, right? And basically, the different perspective was, remember that this, when it was being written, was about 2,000 years ago, roughly. And that was written in a very different culture. So people weren't just coming in and sitting in a gym in air conditioning in nice comfy chairs, listening to music and singing along and a sermon and drinking coffee, right? That was not the culture that this was being written to, was it? In fact, it's much more likely that the setting that people were walking into was you would come in and there was a separation. The men would be in this area, and towards the back, probably, or off to the side, would be all the women. They would be separated. And it's also pretty likely that as they came in and during the service, even though they all spoke a common language, the service would be led in a different language that was of the educated, because unfortunately at the time, it was the men that would be educated that would learn a lot more than the women. And so now can you imagine being a woman sitting there or kneeling there, quite possibly, behind a curtain where you can't really see what's going on, listening to a service that's in a language you probably don't even understand. What are you going to do? Hey, what are you doing after this? Right? You'll start talking. And so this perspective of these verses was just a cultural thing. It's like, hey, look, I know it's boring, but we appreciate you coming. But please be quiet while the service is going on. And if you have questions or you want to know about what was talked about, when you go home, ask your husband who was there and could have understood everything. Now, that's not a perfect situation either, and I'm not saying that that's what we need to start doing, but I hope that we can see that it offers a different perspective to these same verses that has nothing to do with women not being in leadership. In fact, it has everything to do with just a cultural situation of the time that was trying to make the place quiet so people could listen and understand, right? And it just addresses the culture of the day and has very little to do with a woman becoming a pastor or being a teacher or a speaker. Because we see also throughout the Bible, there are so many other stories of Jesus inviting women to come and to sit and to listen and to engage and to converse. We see that it was the women who first encountered the resurrected Jesus, right? And Jesus said, now go and tell others about this really cool thing that you just witnessed. We have a story of Phoebe, who was a deacon of the church, a leader of the church, who was entrusted by Paul to take this letter and go and to share it with another church in another land, right? We see all these other encounters of women in leadership. And I think when we learn to look at things in different ways and not just accept one way of looking at something, we can see that maybe that one way that we were taught, that this is how you look at this scripture, how you look at this issue, maybe that wasn't exactly right. Because when we accept only one way of viewing something without going outside and seeing other ways of viewing the same thing, that can be so harmful. Like we could have been for thousands of years saying, women, you have no place in leadership in the church, and missing out on the great blessing where we have women in leadership, women sharing, women coming and offering their perspective, which is so needed in life. So go outside. Go outside and learn to ask questions and engage with things that you aren't familiar with, don't know yet, and see what you might learn. And when you do, remember that when we go outside, going outside can help keep us close to the ground. And why is that important? Well, because being close to the ground is another way of saying be humble. That's what humble kind of means. Humble means one who is close to the earth, right? One who is grounded. And I think that's the second thing we can do, is to learn how to practice humility in all things. Accept that in almost everything, you could be wrong, or at best, you could still have a lot to learn. Because when we believe that we've got it all figured out, there's something really dangerous about that. My wife likes to remind me of that all the time. She says, you think you know you're right, and you don't listen to me when I see that you're obviously wrong, right? We have a magnet on our fridge that is Sheldon, and Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, and Sheldon is saying, if I was wrong, don't you think I would know it? And my wife likes to point to that all the time and say, no, because right. If we don't at least have room in our world that I could be right, that is so dangerous. A couple of weeks ago, our little one was homesick, not too bad, thankfully, but just couldn't go to daycare. So I was at home taking care of her. And she was driving me crazy, so I was like, well, let's go for a walk. And we went out to Victor Ash Park, which is near our house. And so we're sitting there in the morning, and I'm pushing her in the stroller, walking the loop. And there's an older couple, probably in their 70s, it's a big circle, and so they were walking the other way. So we ended up passing several times. And of course, they looked at little Lena, and they're like, oh, so cute. We passed the first time, and of course, the big smile and the hi. And I forget if it was the second or third time, the woman, as we were passing, was like smiling, hi, hi, hi. Oh, isn't Daddy so nice giving Mommy a break? And I was really taken aback, and I was like, well, no, she's at work, and I probably didn't say it that nicely. And then I kept walking. Because I know in that moment, it's really frustrating for me when someone makes assumptions like that, as if I'm only the helper to my wife and not an actual caregiver to my child, right? And so that kind of irked me, and those situations that irk me and disturb me, really is a good word. The situations that disturb me, I really try to be intentional about later going back and reflecting on that experience. And as I reflected, I was really humbled in a lot of ways on this, and when this happened. Because a couple things occurred to me. Number one, what I heard was this woman's perspective, right? She didn't mean to offend me. She actually thought probably that she was giving me a compliment. Like, what a great dad. He is actually doing his part and not just leaving all the work to his wife. She was not meaning to offend me. She was just sharing what she knew. And if it had been possible, what I should have done was actually stopped and maybe shared with her my own experience and said, hey, I'm not giving her a break because she's at work. I'm taking a break by entertaining my daughter. And because I am, the primary caregiver of my child, as a lot of my dad friends are now. It's a really cool world that we live in, where sometimes it's the women who are the breadwinner, and it's the men who take care of their children. It's really cool when that happens. And the second thing that occurred to me was I realized, as I was reflecting on my slight moment of outrage, that this is how it feels. And that there are people who feel like this constantly. And if one encounter upset me and kind of threw me off for the day, imagine how a lifetime of encounters just like this might feel to so many of those who are in minority groups in our country. And all the more urgent it becomes then for all of us to do all that we can to broaden our perspectives and listen to others' stories, to listen to others' thoughts, to listen to others' experience, and to find out how those different perspectives might actually deepen ours rather than shrink them like I think so often we're afraid they will. So we need to go to foreign places, right? But when we go to foreign places, we go to foreign places to explore, not to conquer. I think that is one of the great temptations that we have, is to look at somewhere that is outside of our thinking, outside of our comfort, outside of our known. And we feel like, I got to go there and change them so that they believe like me, so that they eat like me, so they act like me. But we don't want to do that. Because I think if we go and just learn and invite ourselves to go and to explore, we'll have our worlds open to so many different ways of thinking. And as we grow, we'll see that our beliefs have not shrunk, but they've actually deepened. And those true beliefs, those things that are unified in all of us, such as the truth that God loves each and every one of us more than we can ever imagine. But I invite us to constantly try to imagine how great that love is. And we see, bound by that, when we go and we learn about others, learn with others, I believe that we can trust in God. We can trust in God that when we go outside and we experience things that are different, when we go with humility, knowing that as we experience things, we're probably going to learn that not everything we thought at first was right. We're probably going to learn that there are many different ways to look at this, and our way is not that much more valid, if at all more valid, and it may be less valid than another different way of looking. So let us go outside and find the blessing of trusting in our God, of letting go and encountering something absolutely amazing. A world filled with beauty, with stars, with light, and with love.
Amazing love that welcomes me, the kindness of mercy that bought with blood wholeheartedly my soul undeserving. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has brought for me, both now and forever. You're so good, God, you're so good, God, you're so good, you're so good to me. Sing that with us, God, you're so good. God, you're so
service today. Just remember on your way out, if you have an offering that you need to give, we have boxes off to the side there. And so hope to see all of you next week. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Get your box.